Hello history buffs and welcome back to the channel. I'm Hannah, and with the release of season 2 of Wolf Hall, I'm going to be going back through season 1 and then season 2 and telling you all of the Easter eggs and references I found in each episode. Please note this is not a review, nor is it a what was accurate video, as this is adapted from historical fiction. We're going to start with the episode title, Entirely Beloved. There are two main themes that run through this episode. The main one is reflected in the episode title, and that is love, and the different types of love. You have familial love, the strained but ultimately loving relationship between Thomas and his son Gregory. The very strained and fragmented relationships of the Boleyns, Mary with her sister Anne, her father Thomas, who called her an extra mouth to feed, and her uncle Norfolk, who called her a whore. You then have Thomas Cromwell's love for his mentor Wolsey, the lustful love between Anne and Henry, and Thomas Cromwell and his sister-in-law Joan. The other theme in this episode is animals. We see a cat, a monkey, a rabbit, greyhounds, and a horse. Cromwell visits the king to try and advocate for Wolsey, who at this point has been discarded and has retreated to the country. When Henry sees the documents in Cromwell's hands, he stresses that he can't talk about the cardinal. With the looks the courtiers are giving the king, it's heavily implied that Henry was forced to get rid of Wolsey. Wolsey had written a letter to the king in a desperate attempt to regain favour, and I think it's possible that the letter was in Cromwell's pile of documents. The National Archives provides us with a snippet of what was in this letter. I, your poor, heavy and wretched priest, do daily pursue, cry and call upon your royal majesty for grace, mercy, remission and pardon. He goes on to assure the king that, next unto God I desire not to covet anything in this world, but the turning of your gracious favour and forgiveness of my trespass, the remembrance of my folly with the sharp sword of your highness' displeasure, hath so penetrated my heart. Unfortunately, Wolsey's plea for mercy had no effect on the king. Cromwell returns to Wolsey, and Wolsey insists that the king wants him gone, but Cromwell tells him that if he did, then he would be in the Tower. This is also backed up when Cromwell goes to see Henry, and Henry stresses that he can't talk about the cardinal. Thomas Cromwell is holding a black kitten that was born in Cardinal Wolsey's room. Wolsey says that this is a bad omen before his journey. This is a reference to black cats bringing bad luck, a superstition that was common at the time. And even now, the poor guys still have a bit of a stigma. Pope Innocent VIII ordered the killing of black cats in 1484, and as we know, black is often associated with witches. And Elizabeth I ordered black cats to be burned alive at her coronation to release their demonic spirits. I will protect you, my baby. Look at him, he's so cute. Oh, no, you don't want to be here, do you? Okay, goodbye. The black cat also foreshadows Wolsey's death later in the episode, and how George Cavendish said that Wolsey's blood was black, hinting at poison. Wolsey then says he feels like Katherine, cast off. Katherine of Aragon was forced to live away from court in damp and uncomfortable castles to basically rot. Very much an out of sight, out of mind thing. Tom Holland, your friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man, is playing Gregory Cromwell, who was mentioned in the last episode. Cromwell opens a keepsake box, which seems to have a lock of what I presume is the deceased wife's hair, and his prayer book. He adds in the gift from Wolsey that is engraved with his initials, which is symbolising Cromwell saying goodbye to his old master, advice that he was given in the previous scene. In the gardens, Cromwell is holding a white rabbit, and a monkey is seen at the dinner table in the next scene. The theme of animals in this episode is continued. While having dinner with Sir Thomas More, More said that Luther was shit in Latin. More was a Catholic and therefore would have had polarising views to Martin Luther and his branch of Christianity. Cromwell praises the education of More's daughters, and we know that Sir Thomas More very much pushed for female education. Go check out my video on Thomas More for more info, although I might put it over there. His most well-known daughter is Meg Roper, who in this episode and the next episode is played by Emma Hiddleston, the sister of hunky Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston plays a prominent part in the MCU where he plays the god Loki, brother of Thor. Hiddleston played the role of Loki in Avengers Infinity War alongside Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, who plays Gregory Cromwell, although the two didn't have any scenes together in that movie. Lady Alice More wears an outfit just like her portrait. Mary Boleyn talks to Cromwell. She says Anne is in a temper, something that Anne was known to have had. Mary then says that because of how things are done in France, it was thought that Anne might take on a certain position, i.e. a maîtresse en titre, or mistress, although a royal mistress at the French court had more to gain than one in England. But Anne said she wasn't a fool like Mary. This alludes to Mary's time as Henry's mistress, but also the rumour that Mary may have even been Francois, the King of France's mistress in France. Mary says that she then needs to remarry to stop all of the rumours about her, and that her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, called her a whore. A reference to Mary having the unfortunate moniker of the Great and Infamous, which is also the name of Alison Weir's autobiography about Mary. Mary at this point has lost one husband, and she then says she needs to get married to stop all of the name-calling and practically tries it on with Cromwell. But this is also foreshadowing Mary's second and scandalous marriage. Mary also warns Cromwell not to fall for Anne's flattery, and gives the audience a sense of tension and somewhat jealousy between the sisters. It is thought that the two might have been close when they were younger, but by the time they were adults, they had a somewhat strained relationship, and it has been suggested that the two Boleyn girls were never really that close as portrayed in this series. When Cromwell enters the room, the music stops. Anne asks what he had done, to which Cromwell says he hit Mark Smeaton with one finger. To which Anne responds,
"Who? Oh, is that his name?"
Which is very fitting, as most historians believe that the adultery charges against Anne were falsified. And Anne, not even knowing Mark's name and being so dismissive, shows how little Mark meant to her and is a clear representation of that. You can see Anne's prayer book, one that she shares with Cromwell and Katherine of Aragon. And I don't mean like they shared like the one book, like it's been proven that Anne, Katherine and Thomas Cromwell had a copy of the same book. Anne shows Cromwell a drawing of herself having been beheaded that was found in her bed. This did actually happen. Cromwell then meets Jane Seymour, and it's at this point that Cromwell has just interacted with and navigated King Henry's past, Mary Boleyn, present Anne Boleyn, and future Jane Seymour. Cromwell is watching the king shoot arrows with other courtiers who recount the king having an accident where he falls off his horse, which did happen. Henry's most well-known fall from a horse is the one in January 1536 during a joust. When talking about his fall in 1528, this one, Alison Weir says, quote, "He also had recurrent trouble with one leg after being wounded by a fall from his horse in 1528, and yet he continued to hunt regularly and rode with skill." After joining in some shooting, Henry and Cromwell go for a walk in the gardens, and Henry confides to Cromwell that Anne refuses to sleep with him until they are married, a strategy that is well associated with Anne and replicated by her successor Jane Seymour. Henry then adds that Anne is threatening to leave him because it's taking too long to achieve the annulment. Cromwell is then informed by George Cavendish that Wolsey was arrested by Henry Percy. George Cavendish basically tells us why it was Henry Percy. It's because Anne Boleyn wanted her revenge on Wolsey for not letting her and Percy wed. At the end of the episode, during the masque, commemorating Wolsey's death, Anne is wearing her signature bee necklace. She's also wearing red to suggest that she has Wolsey's blood on her hands, as Cavendish tells Cromwell in the previous scene that Wolsey's blood was black and that he thought Wolsey was poisoned, heavily suggesting that Anne had the motive to poison him because he stopped her from marrying Percy. And that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure that notification bell is turned on so you never miss an episode. But until the next one, guys, have a wonderful day. Bye.